The Grand Hall of the Intergalactic Academy buzzed with anticipation as the annual selection ceremony began. Representatives from 100 worlds had gathered to witness the human students choose their diplomatic partners, a tradition meant to forge bonds between Earth and the alien civilizations that had welcomed humanity into the galactic community just 3 generations prior. Marcus stood among his fellow cadets, trying to ignore the knot in his stomach. The ceremony was straightforward enough. Each human would select one alien, female, as their partner for the next 4 years of advanced study. These partnerships would determine their futures, their careers, and quite possibly the fate of diplomatic relations between entire star systems. The auditorium fell silent as the Chancellor, a towering being from the Velcro system, announced the beginning of the selection process. One by one, the human students stepped forward to make their choices. The pattern was predictable and painfully obvious. They chose the most visually striking aliens, the ones whose features happened to align with human aesthetic preferences: symmetrical faces, graceful movements, and an air of obvious sophistication. When Thomas selected the statuesque princess from Andara Prime, the crowd applauded. When Rebecca chose the elegant daughter of the Krovan ambassador, the hall erupted in approving murmurs. Each choice seemed more calculated than the last, each human student clearly angling for the political advantages that came with selecting someone from a powerful family. Marcus watched it all with growing discomfort. His eyes kept drifting to the back row, where the less favored candidates sat. Among them was a small, unremarkable figure that everyone else seemed determined to ignore. Her name was Tilly, and she came from Dracon IV, a minor world on the far edge of explored space, where the other aliens wore elaborate garments and carried themselves with practiced poise. Tilly hunched slightly in plain gray robes. Her skin was a mottled brown-green, rough and scaled in patches. One eye was clouded, the result of some childhood injury, and her limbs seemed slightly too long for her compact torso. By any conventional standard, she was the least attractive option in the room. But Marcus had noticed something the others had not. During the preliminary mingles the week before, while other candidates had practiced their rehearsed speeches and political talking points, Tilly had sat alone in the library. Marcus had found her there by accident, surrounded by ancient texts written in a dozen languages. She was cross-referencing historical accounts of first contact scenarios, her good eye moving with fierce intelligence across the pages. They had talked for 3 hours that night. She spoke 6 languages fluently and could read 12 more. She had memorized the complete histories of 43 worlds and could recite trade agreements from memory. More than that, she understood the nuances of cultural exchange in ways that made Marcus's own education seem superficial. "Cadet Marcus," the Chancellor called, pulling him from his thoughts. "Please make your selection." The hall fell silent again, but this time with expectation. Marcus came from an influential family on Earth. His choice would carry weight. The ambassadors leaned forward in their seats. The other candidates straightened, hoping to be chosen. Marcus walked past them all. The whispers started when he changed direction. They grew louder as he moved toward the back row. By the time he stopped in front of Tilly, the entire hall had erupted in barely suppressed laughter. "Is this a joke?" someone muttered. "He cannot be serious," another voice added. Tilly looked up at him with her one good eye, surprise and something like hope flickering across her uneven features. Marcus extended his hand. "Will you be my partner?" he asked. The laughter grew louder. Someone in the back actually guffawed. Marcus heard his fellow cadets whispering among themselves, their voices dripping with mockery and disbelief. Tilly took his hand. Her grip was firm and warm. "I will," she said quietly. The Chancellor looked uncertain, but had no choice except to formalize the selection. As Marcus and Tilly walked back to their seats together, the sneers and chuckles followed them like a wake. The first year was brutal. Marcus and Tilly were assigned the worst living quarters, the most inconvenient class schedules, and received none of the preferential treatment afforded to the other pairs. The other humans avoided Marcus, treating him like he had committed some unforgivable social error. The alien students were hardly better, regarding Tilly with the same dismissive attitude they had always shown her. But Marcus and Tilly worked. While other pairs spent their time at social functions and networking events, they buried themselves in studies. Tilly's knowledge was encyclopedic, but Marcus brought something she lacked: an intuitive understanding of human psychology and motivation. Together, they made a formidable team. When the first major assignment arrived, requiring each pair to resolve a simulated diplomatic crisis, most teams floundered. The scenario involved a trade dispute between three systems, each with conflicting cultural values and economic interests. The solutions presented by the other pairs were textbook responses, adequate but uninspired. Marcus and Tilly spent 72 hours on their presentation. Tilly identified historical precedents from 6 different civilizations. Marcus crafted a framework that honored each culture's core values while creating new economic opportunities none of them had considered. Their solution was elegant, unexpected, and brilliant. They received the highest marks in Academy history. The whispers changed after that. The laughter became less certain. By the second year, other students began to notice what Marcus had seen from the beginning. In advanced linguistics class, Tilly could translate real-time between languages that had no common root structure. In cultural studies, she could explain the subtle differences between 50 variations of a single greeting gesture. In strategic planning, her mind worked 3 steps ahead of everyone else in the room. But it was during the third year that everything changed. A real crisis emerged. Not a simulation, but an actual diplomatic incident that threatened to destabilize an entire sector. 2 allied worlds had discovered competing claims to a resource-rich moon, and their dispute was escalating toward armed conflict. The Academy was asked to contribute ideas for resolution, and the Chancellor decided to make it a competition among the student pairs. The other teams produced solid work. They suggested arbitration, resource-sharing agreements, and various compromise positions. All perfectly reasonable solutions that would likely achieve temporary peace, while leaving the underlying tensions unresolved. Marcus and Tilly approached it differently. Tilly had discovered something in her research. Both worlds shared a common, ancestral culture from before their populations had diverged thousands of years ago. That ancient culture had a specific tradition for resolving property disputes that involved neither party taking possession. Instead, the disputed property would be designated as sacred ground, maintained by both parties jointly for the benefit of their shared heritage. Marcus took that framework and modernized it. He proposed that the moon become a joint research station operated by scientists from both worlds, dedicated to studying their shared history. The resources extracted would fund cultural exchange programs and historical preservation. Neither side would own the moon, but both would benefit from it in ways that honored their past while building their future. The proposal went beyond the Academy. It reached the actual diplomats negotiating the crisis. After weeks of discussion, both worlds accepted a modified version of the plan. The human and alien students who had mocked Marcus 3 years earlier suddenly wanted to know his secret. How had an unremarkable human and the least desirable alien in their class accomplished what seasoned diplomats could not? Marcus gave them the only answer that mattered. I chose the most capable partner, not the most decorative one. By their 4th and final year, Marcus and Tilly were legends at the Academy. They had perfect academic records, 3 published papers on cross-cultural communication, and standing offers from a dozen diplomatic corps. The other students, who had once laughed at Marcus's choice, now wished they could undo their own. At the graduation ceremony, the Chancellor presented them with the highest honors. As they stood before the assembled representatives of 100 worlds, Tilly spoke for the first time to the full assembly. "I was the one nobody wanted," she said, her rough voice carrying through the silent hall. "My world is small, my appearance unconventional, my family without influence. But I have always known my worth comes not from these superficial things, but from what I can offer in knowledge, dedication, and partnership. Marcus saw that when no one else did. That is true wisdom." The hall erupted in applause, genuine this time. After the ceremony, as they prepared to depart for their first official assignment, Marcus found Tilly standing alone on the observation deck, looking out at the stars. "Do you regret it?" she asked without turning. "You could have chosen someone who would have made your life easier, someone who would have opened doors through their family connections." Marcus stepped beside her. "I chose someone who helped me earn my own way, someone who made me better at everything I do. No, I do not regret it for a single moment." Tilly's uneven features arranged themselves into what he had learned to recognize as her smile. "Then we have both chosen,"